but do you guys ever find things that are hard to synergize on, that there's just you just can't make the connection and you have to figure out a way to do something else?
Yeah, so you're talking about a problem where Josh and I, like, just basically our part departments aren't able to align on something, or yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're starting to go down that path where we're like, how much of the roadmap do we save for tech debt? Tech debt is something that you always need to think about and that you want
Yep.
to pay off.
Right.
So far, product's been amenable to that just because we have deadlines. Like, this thing's going to get deprecated. If you don't let us work on it, then the app's going to go offline, and nobody wants that.
Right.
But yeah, for the most part, we tend to agree, but we're not in a situation yet where the engineers are coming up with their own features and saying, like, this is something that I want to work on. But I'm starting to see that boil up more. And so having their work be deprioritized, like their ideas be deprioritized over what product is saying, would be an interesting situation. But for the most part, we're pretty good. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to start coming up. It's like we're a startup and we've had so many things to work on. Like, not saying that the app's awful, but there's so many improvements you could make, and they would all be great. And it's now, as we start to focus on certain things more, it starts to become more of like a push pull. It's like notifications is one thing that like really needs to be redone. And that takes a lot of product effort, a lot of engineering effort. And like, I agree with that and see that, but then when it comes down to the roadmap and you're like, all right, what are we going to build next? It doesn't sell any software notifications. Like, our notifications are good enough. And like, I would love them to be better, but
You need a brochure story.
Yeah.
yeah. And meanwhile, like, I think it's taking up, my understanding is notifications take up more and more resources on the back end. So eventually something needs to be done. And I think that's like an example of like the conflict is like, can that wait?
Yeah.
So I had an interesting conversation today because we just onboarded our senior UX designer. And so UX is considered part of our product team. I'm curious how you all usually do that. This is new for me to actually have like dedicated UX designers. It's nice. Like, it's certainly nice when you're managing front end developers to have UX. But she said to me, we had this conversation about how the two of us were going to work together. And she said to me, like, if I ever come to you and want to go outside of Material UI, which is the component library that we use for React, she's like, if I want to do something custom, like, are you going to let me do that? And I was like, are you going to justify it? And she's like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, you're going to need to justify it in order for us to agree to like a custom component. Is it because it's sexy? Is it because you wanted to work on the design? Is it because you think it'll provide a better user experience? And so I actually, because she's brand new coming into an app, I feel like UX is very similar with marketing. You tend to come into a new company and you're like, I want to redo everything. Like, because you want it to be yours. You
Yeah.
want your brand on it.
Right.
And so we don't have that struggle with product, but I could definitely see that struggle coming from UX.
Yeah. That's a tough nut to crack. And engineers have that a lot too, especially the kind of project management type engineers. They get into that kind of, I want to use my tools that I was using last time and bring them over here. Just replace all your crappy tools because they're not as good as my tools. So,
Oh, I'll tell you what, I do have some engineers that I onboarded this year. They come in and they open pull requests and they're like, I worked at this big Rails company and we had these tools that made things easier. I'm just gonna copy them in here. And I'm like, cool, free, smart. Like, you go ahead and commit your tools in. But you're right, though. We do have issues where, new people come in and they want to bring their entire expensive tool set in. And
right.
you're like, it sucks to be that person being like, that's not what we do here.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm all for, hey, bring your new blood, your new thoughts, your new ideas, help us get better. You're here because you're smart. Let's utilize that. But balancing that between, yeah, but Yeah, but we're not going to throw out all of our tools just because you think this one is better, unless you have some serious justification for it. Do you run into that much on the product side, Josh?
Of like tools and wanting to replace things, or
Well, like you bringing new folks on board and them saying we should do it this way. I want to get rid of what you're doing and do it this way.
not really. So we have someone new starting soon. I'm currently the only product manager. So we haven't onboarded anybody new. So I guess we'll find out soon. But yeah, like I think we've had a lot of improvement recently. Brittany, do you have any other perspective?
What about like the internal names for applications? I thought that was like a funny thing. Like we have those internal names for applications that we don't want to be customer facing, and kind of had a little bit of scuffle about whether or not we should be doing that anymore, right?
Yeah. And I guess that's where I had to kind of, be empathetic to an outsider coming in, is like thinking like, okay, I'm familiar with this because I've been here for 4 years and I watched it grow. But there's also certain situations where like those names are useful in the sense that like they are funny names, but they do differentiate between different pieces of or different basically apps that work together to create the experience. So we've run into that, but I guess I see that more of just like human nature than like an issue of like process or anything that's insurmountable.
If you like this clip and want to watch another one, you can click right here, or if you want to watch the full video, you can click here.